This gives us an idea, a pretty clear visualization of the winds going towards and away from the radar site. That'll determine whether this becomes a potentially life-threatening avalanche. Hail that we saw outside our studios. Not every day that you can pick up a golf ball-sized hailstone. Continued coverage of Hurricane Irma right here on Weather Nation. Meteorologist Chris Bianchi here with meteorologist Jewel Barnes as we're tracking this storm as it winds its way on up the Floridian Peninsula. And now we're talking about potentially some of those substantial impacts making their way into the I-4 corridor, including Orlando and Tampa. Area low pressure just can't move anywhere because this high, the way I'd think about it, think of it as a stop sign. This front's trying to move its way into the Atlantic Ocean and give us some relief across the East Coast. This high saying, you ain't going anywhere. Here's a different way to enjoy the snowfall, or try and enjoy it there. Yeah, wouldn't recommend that necessarily, but looks like this young gentleman having a great time there in Erie, Pennsylvania. A lot of swollen creeks, a lot of swollen streams and rivers here across the East Coast. We're adding this on top of that, potentially 3 to 7 inches plus worth of additional rainfall. And the general outlook as we get into the week beyond, into next week, yeah, you guessed it, more rain for some areas that just need a break from it. The supercell forms from the top down, and the landspout forms from the ground up. Again, these tend to be a little weaker, shorter lived, but remember here, folks, these are still tornadoes, so they can cause injuries and damage. Put this in perspective, a 2-day total of 56.5 inches of snowfall. That's more than Minneapolis, Chicago, Detroit, Boston, Fargo, and Salt Lake City see in the average winter. All right, you get the idea. They've seen a lot of snow. There's a definite waterspout right offshore here, about 15 miles or so to the east of Oak Hill. That's a waterspout. There's no doubt about that. And this is likely one just to the east of Daytona Beach. Spinner, 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 and this is all rotation, all embedded within this. Another, by the way, that down there, bottom right-hand side of the screen, definite waterspout. Avalanches. They occur every winter and can be deadly. On average, avalanches kill nearly 30 people per year in the United States, a number that has climbed as backcountry skiing has grown more popular. So what causes avalanches and how do you avoid them? We went to Steamboat Springs, Colorado to learn from those who see them firsthand, ski patrols.
What we're going to be looking at here is the layering of the snowpack, identifying different layers, and then we can do a couple of tests to try to find weaknesses in the snowpack that might create an avalanche in the backcountry.
Snow with differing weight is exactly what experts look for. More water means heavier snow. The most unstable snow layering is heavy snow on top of lighter snow with a layer of ice in between.
It's not as tightly packed right through here. There's this line. That may have been some snow that sat on the surface during a cold clear period. What we call surface hoar develops, and it develops these large feathery crystals. And then when they get buried by additional snow, that could potentially be a weak layer that collapses and causes an avalanche.
To prevent avalanches, ski patrollers will set off controlled blasts or just simply ski on top of a fresh snow layer. That creates a controlled avalanche and lowers the risk of an unexpected slide. Before you ski or go into backcountry, make sure you know your risk. After a heavy snow, stay on the trails and watch for signage. Between snow water content, the amount of storms that you've had, and the amount of time that you've had them over, that'll determine whether this becomes a potentially life-threatening avalanche. For Weather Nation, I'm meteorologist Chris Bianchi. Tornado warning continues for central parts of Ohio. This is going to be for portions of Marion as well as Union counties, about 45 miles north of Columbus. This tornado warning issued by the Cleveland office, the National Weather Service office out of Cleveland, and that tornado warning does include the city of Marion, Ohio, and that warning goes until 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for joining us here on Weather Nation. I'm meteorologist Chris Bianchi. And let's zip on in here on the storm. Again, tornado warning for Marion as well as northern portions of Union County. This is, by the way, just to get back things on up here so you get an idea in terms of what we're talking about. If you're watching us from Columbus, this is about 40 to 45 miles to your north-northwest right now, but zipping on in on the warning itself, the area of rotation is going to likely be just to the south of LaRue, and I'm going to circle it for you right in there, right near Arbella, where we do have that strong inbound, outbound wind. Now, what we're looking for on this particular map here, on this particular product, is we're looking for winds going away from the radar site and coming towards the radar site, coming together in a short space and distance. That gives us an idea that we may have some low-level rotation. And again, where I just kind of circled that area right to the south of LaRue in southwestern parts of Marion County, that's where we likely have that tornado that is on the ground here. In fact, I'm going to pull up some of these wind speeds that we do have going towards the radar site, going away from the radar site, I should say. Have wind speeds up to about 36 miles an hour coming towards it, about 15 to 20 miles an hour. That gives an idea that we got about 50-mile-an-hour winds converging in a short space and distance. That may give us some of that rotation. This is heading off towards the north and east, relatively slow speed. This is moving at about 20 miles an hour. That's relatively slow for a tornado or a severe thunderstorm warned storm, and this would put it in the direction of New Bloomington in 8 minutes, Big Island in 18, and Morrill and Marion in 25 minutes. So this is a relatively slow-moving storm. So if you're watching this from Marion, you still have a few minutes to get into that innermost room away from any windows. Ideally, that's a basement. Ideally, that is a storm shelter. Again, tornado warning for parts of Union as well as Marion counties here in central Ohio, and that does go until 11 p.m. Eastern time. Off towards the north and west, you have a lot of showers and thunderstorms. And turning on our lightning tracker, we do have some scattered lightning strikes. Not a ton, honestly, with these. Normally, with a tornado warned storm, as you might imagine, there's a lot of energy that goes into the making of a tornado, and normally you'll have a lot of lightning strikes surrounding it. This is a bit of an unusual circumstance in that regard, that we don't have a lot of lightning around it. Not a lot of lightning with this batch of moisture here in through Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. Where's all the lightning? Where's all the moisture? It's down here into the Carolinas and on up into Virginia. We do have some slow-moving storms out here in through eastern North Carolina, an area that has just been inundated for the last few days and the last few weeks, and we do have a line of storms east of Memphis. That's just to the east of Memphis now, and along I-40 there and through western parts of Tennessee, and also here along the Gulf Coast. Things are fairly busy here on your Tuesday evening, and also for you in Albuquerque, again, another storm. You had a pretty strong storm last night in Albuquerque. In fact, you had two of them last night. Looks like you'll get another one moving its way into the Albuquerque area in the next couple of minutes. Speaking of storms in the southwest, take a look at this out of the Phoenix area last night. So Phoenix, you saw some strong storms. You can see some more of that here as we get through the rest of the week. Likely not tonight, but a lot of lightning with some of that monsoonal moisture that we saw yesterday there in the Phoenix metro area. We also saw some strong winds, up to a 74-mile-an-hour wind gust on the north side of the city, and downtown we saw up to a 60-mile-an-hour wind gust. And there's a look at some of that, and unfortunately some damage from these storms here in the Phoenix area, and that's something we've been keeping a very close eye on here over the last little while. Meantime, Albuquerque, yeah, you've got some clouds, some showers and storms. Look at that. Not a whole lot that's to be seen because of all that rain that is moving its way into downtown Albuquerque. Current temperature of 86 degrees. That's also kind of at the heart of our main severe weather risk zone here on your Tuesday. Primary hazards can be damaging straight line winds, so you may lose power in through the Albuquerque area as well as into Santa Fe and south into central parts of New Mexico. Large hail a possibility, although that's likely going to decrease once the sun goes down. And there's a small tornado potential here into parts of New Mexico as we head over the next few hours. As I mentioned, those showers and storms do dissipate fairly quickly. Once the sun goes down, the sun's kind of the fuel source for these showers and storms. So once the sun goes down, it's pretty hard to sustain any of that stormy weather. That said, into your day tomorrow, could see some more storms into eastern New Mexico as well as into western parts of the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles, and also some pretty heavy rain in some spots. Meantime, we wish we could take some of that rain and move it here into Redding, California, and the site of the Carr fire. An update on the wildfires, the deadly wildfires in California, coming up. Las imágenes después de Huracán María son horribles. Estamos hablando sobre pronóstico acá en Puerto Rico y también las últimas noticias. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Soy meteorólogo Chris Bianchi. Y lo último sobre la tormenta, 16 muertos en Puerto Rico, 97% de la isla está sin energía eléctrica y más o menos un medio de la isla sin agua también. El presidente de los Estados Unidos, Donald Trump, visitará la próxima semana estará en Puerto Rico la semana próxima. Y si quieres ayudar a los afectados, puedes ir a americares.org, puedes llamar la Cruz Roja Americana 1-800-733-2767 o puedes ir al sitio unidosporpuertorico.com también. El pronóstico acá en Puerto Rico, un jueves más o menos seco, pero después de eso, el viernes y el sábado, malas noticias, vemos con más frecuencia, más aguaceros y más tormentas y más lluvias y obviamente no necesitamos más lluvias después del huracán y el viento desde el este, pero otra vez, un jueves más o menos seco es el viernes y el sábado cuando vemos más aguaceros y más tormentas, especialmente al oeste de la isla, entre Aguadilla y Mayagüez y también el Ponce vemos más aguaceros también acá. Gracias por estar con nosotros en Weather Nation. Soy meteorólogo Chris Bianchi.